Hello, I'm Richard Mize, real estate editor for the Oklahoman and newsok.com. This afternoon with Jim Parrack. He's Senior Vice President and Retail Property Specialist with Price Edwards and Company, big commercial brokerage here in Oklahoma City. Their mid-year retail property market summary is just out, and that's what we're talking about. Jim, why is retail not humming to the level that we would like it to be?
Yeah, it's good to be here, Richard. Appreciate it. It seems kind of odd to start out the survey that way because so many good things are going on in Oklahoma City. We have low unemployment, we have rising sales taxes, good business growth, new business growth, a lot of good things going on. But when you talk to brokers, you get into the retail business, there's just not the level of activity you would expect given some of those good numbers. And we really see that as a few reasons for that. One is kind of national, and that is the disruption that we've talked about for the last several years going on in retail. And that has cut back on some of the expansion activities, and we've obviously had more closures and some things like that. There's a couple things locally that I think factor into it as well. One of them is that I think we still have kind of a hangover from the oil downturn. Even though we've had a bounce up in prices and the companies are doing better, a lot of them have got so efficient that they haven't hired back some of those high-paid workers, and that's helped depress our wages a little bit.
That's more than a hangover, though.
That's a little bit more than a hangover.
We don't see it changing
that
very
is
much
money for people who shop, and so I think that's one of the things locally. I think the other is our population growth has slowed. And so if you look at the numbers, we grew in 2015 about 1.6%. It went down a little bit in 2017. It's gone down quite a bit this year. And so the two things that retail really feed on are population growth and wage growth. And so locally, that's hurt us a little too. And so I think those things combined with the national retail picture have kind of hurt us a little.
Has spending not maintained nationally, I mean across all platforms, not just bricks and mortar, but online, has retail spending not maintained, or has it?
Retail spending continues to go up.
So, right, so we're getting back again to the dichotomy, not the dichotomy, but the difference between in the store and at your computer or on your phone, and still trying to figure that out.
We are still trying to get to that equilibrium, and what you and I have talked about in the past. It's not really a battle between online and brick and mortar anymore. It's kind of a melding of the two, and because brick and mortar stores are going online stores are going brick and mortar. Advertising and digital media is a big part of that, and so it's kind of where all that is going to settle, is going to kind of figure out where the brick and mortar ends up.
And that's working itself out on the ground here now too, though, right? With Amazon, and with wondering what's going to happen with related industrial properties as that system develops and becomes a daily thing here.
Right.
So it's spending dollars exactly are one thing, but then there are other dollars floating around that are related to retail that are kind of something to look at in the future.
Yeah, without a doubt. And for those of us that earn a living in the brick and mortar business, we want to keep a close eye on it.
Of course.
So.
Good. What shape are the malls in?
It varies. The rule of thumb nationally, and I think we've tracked this fairly closely locally, is that A malls are doing really well. So the top end malls in good locations are not only doing well, they're improving. And I think everybody thinks they'll continue to do so, and they're not in any danger at all. Penn Square here is considered to be one of those malls. When tenants leave, they can replace them. They've added the Container Store out in the parking lot. Good things continue to happen in those malls. Then you take a step down to the B malls, and those have some challenges. They've lost some tenants. They lose an anchor here and there. Foot traffic's not quite as much as it used to be. Those malls are having to get more creative to stay viable.
What are the B malls?
So a B mall would be, and they usually A, B, and C is kind of bracketed by per square foot sales. And so and there's other things that factor into it too. But so Quail Springs Mall in our market would be probably considered a B mall. General Growth owns it. They've had a few struggles recently with a few tenants moving out. If you look in particular at the east wing of the mall, they have some vacancy. They have some what we would consider to be kind of temporary tenants that they would replace if they could. And so those malls, those B malls, are doing some non-traditional tenants. Quail Springs tore down the Macy's store.
Yeah, if you haven't been out there, and I had not been out there
right.
For a long time until just a couple of weeks ago, I was at Penny's. I mean, I couldn't
it's
believe
gone.
It's gone.
They built Lifetime Fitness in the parking lot.
Which is a beautiful building.
And they are a great operator. Oklahoma City's going to love Lifetime Fitness.
That's a gym? I mean,
it is a gym and more.
Okay.
But it's not connected to the mall. Fitness centers in malls is kind of a new concept. Some of those B malls have added housing, so apartments near malls. You've heard, and we've talked about through the years, entertainment venues, and so that level of mall is going to have to be creative to be profitable. And I don't think Quail Springs is in risk of closing, but they're going to have to work at it over the next several years. And then there's the third group of mall, which is kind of the C-class malls that are in the wrong place. They're too old. They've lost 2 anchors. And most people assume, and I think they're probably right, that there's about 200 of those across the country. They're going to fail. Now, it takes malls a long time to fail once they start bleeding.
We had some on last
We've seen that here. It took Crossroads forever to fail, and of course it's closed now. Heritage Park Mall closed. So those would be examples of C malls. And then we have one, Sooner Mall in Norman, it's a little bit of an anomaly in that small malls, and it kind of fits that odd category, they haven't done that well across the country. Sooner Mall's still relatively full, still gets pretty good traffic. The thing you worry about it, obviously, is that Sears and JCPenney are 2 of its anchors. And if both of them go, it'll be an issue.
That Sears is not, the Sears there wasn't one of the ones that was cut then?
Not yet.
We lost our old-timey standalone down at Southwest 44th and Western.
Right.
I mean, it's closing up this week, I think,
the mothership on 44th and Western. And you know, people forget how good of a retailer Sears was. I mean, Sears just dominated retail for years and years, had a lot of great people over there. But it's been dying for years now. This is a total aside, but Sears should have been Amazon. If you think about it, they were the dominant player in the industry. They had a catalog that they shipped stuff all over the country. They had a list of all the addresses of all their customers all over the place. If they'd have had some people there that were digitally oriented when the internet came online, they should have been Amazon.
Somebody out here asked for a phone book a while ago. And we all looked at each other like, really?
And all the young people in your office go,
it was one of the younger guys that asked. We thought, what's the matter with you? Let me go back to Quail Springs for a minute. I'm surprised that it's not troubled. It's not that. It's just in transition, isn't it? Because there are more people living up around there now than ever.
Right.
Every time you turn around, another apartment complex is popping up.
And and the demographics,
those are all rooftops,
and the demographics around that area are only going to get better and better. As the area north of there and northwest of there fills in.
And Chisholm gives them a different kind of competition, I guess.
And Chisholm, as they develop and do some of their boutique retail that's in their plans, will be some competition for Quail Springs. But as I said, they're just going to have to get creative. And General Growth, who owns it, one of the biggest mall owners in the country, they know what they're doing. They'll figure it out. There's just going to be some growing pains getting from here to there.
And if it's a big, I mean, anything that's big, lumbers, takes its time. It can take its time, and so we wouldn't necessarily expect a quick fix.
I think that's right.
Let's go back to the ground. What's the most active sub-market?
You know, the most active sub-market almost always is our north sub-market. So it is that market we're kind of talking about with that goes from Penn Square up to Quail Springs in the Memorial Road corridor. It's the most retail in the city. It is the first place that retailers want to be. And so when new retailers come to town, like Lifetime Fitness, like Five Below, they want to be somewhere there. It's also had the most activity because as we've had a few failures, as the Gordmans has gone out and Toys R Us has gone out, you know, there's two of the Gordmans are in that market area. The Toys R Us, there was a Toys R Us there. There was a Babies R Us at Belle Isle, and so they've seen a lot of activity, but still remain relatively healthy.
Activity doesn't mean negative necessarily.
Not necessarily.
What's the most stable part of the metro?
You know, probably the most stable are those markets that are a little more mature, and so probably the more Norman market has been fairly stable over the last several years. They've maintained a consistent occupancy, and then, and this may be damning with faint praise, but like the Northwest market has been fairly stable, but at a fairly high vacancy rate. But they've been consistent.
Anything to add? We've kind of danced around all kinds of topics, which is why we do this.
Yeah.
Anything else
well,
come to mind? I'm thinking about that new place at Chisholm. What is it? Byrne?
Byrne.
Tell me about Byrne. Do you know anything about it?
I know enough about Byrne to be dangerous.
I probably know more about it than you do. Rocky Patel, who's a cigar god.
Right, right.
For those of us who partake of stogies. It's a full scale. What you said, 3-story. I didn't realize it was that big.
It's 3-story cigar bar that is very well done.
And there's only 3 of them.
Yes.
In the United States, and Oklahoma City wound up with one. That's pretty cool.
And,
to people that
you know, the Track 30 and the Point, where Uncle Julio's and 4 other restaurants are getting ready to be opened.
Uncle Julio's, Cole's,
is really developing into a very active area for people to go eat
and to do
and hang out.
To eat and to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we've talked about lifestyle centers for about a decade.
Right.
We're finally getting there, really, aren't we?
Yeah. Chisholm Creek has done a good job getting quality tenants, first of the market tenants, and the kind of tenants that people want to hang out with.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jim Parrack, Senior Vice President and Retail Property Specialist with Price Edwards and Company, and I'm Richard Mize with the Oklahoman and News OK.